Bonjour, bonjour. Welcome to a new weekly live class. It is 7 p.m. for me. It is 1 p.m. Eastern time. This is the time that we meet every Sunday now. And today we have a much requested topic, which is how to speak French with confidence. So if you're here, please say hi in the comments. I see that we have Linda here, and she's mentioning that Connie won't be here because she's in a lot of pain after the surgery. I'm really sorry to hear that. I wish Connie a bon rétablissement, as we say in French. Let me add that in so you know how it's spelled. Bon rétablissement. That means get well soon. I mean, that's the French equivalent of get well soon. So yeah, bon rétablissement, Connie. I hope she can watch it later. And as usual, we have a little worksheet which is contains the main talking points of today with some holes which you can fill. If you do not have the worksheet, please note that you can actually find it on my Telegram channel. And the link to my Telegram channel is in the description of this video. And you can actually find all the worksheets from the past videos as well, at least since we have created worksheets, which was maybe a month and a half ago or so. So now I will seek to always make a worksheet every Sunday because it does help a lot. I'm particularly proud about this one because it can also serve as a cheat sheet. So whenever you feel that you need a bit more confidence, you will be able to return to this worksheet which you have filled and to just find out what you can do to improve your confidence. So there are 7 hacks today. I wrote them as 7 hacks you've never heard of. You might actually have heard of some of those if you have been following me for a long time. It's not like they're really new, to be honest. It's more like no one is talking about them. I would say no one but me, or very few people are talking about them. Or when we or they talk about it, it's not really so much as something that's confidence improving. So even if you're watching this in a very long time, you can always find the cheat or worksheet in my Telegram channel. So Omo Walayo is here. Bonjour. Flora is here. Nice. Sweet to have you here. I'm glad that you're here. Also, a bit of housekeeping. Last Sunday, we had 99 chat messages, and we've been trying to break the 100 chat messages bar for a certain time. And I was so impressed that we were at exactly 99. So let's see if we can break it this time. I have lots of questions for you, which you will be able to answer. So we'll see if you can get that done. And one more piece of housekeeping, which I think is very important, is that I have 3 spots open for one-on-one coaching right now. I was completely surprised that this happened, just because I have been booked out for a really long time. But suddenly, a lot of my clients are just having other things to do and don't have time to do their French coaching right now. So I have 3 spots. You will find the link to my one-on-one coaching program in the description below. It's called the French Transformation. So if you have been waiting for some openings, now we do have some. Also, something that I need to tell you is that the rate for this program in particular will be increased at the beginning of July. Because actually I realized I haven't increased my rates since 2019, but my coaching has evolved tremendously, especially that when you join the one-on-one coaching program, you also have access to the whole of the French Fluency Accelerator, which now is huge. I think it has, 22 or 23 full workshops in there about every area of the French language which you can think of. I have made the latest one last week, which was about the subjunctive. So we're really getting into like advanced topics right now. You have workshops about everything: pronouns, adjectives, verbs. We have 3 workshops about verbs now. You have workshops about becoming fluent, and of course, all the core method that I teach is also in those workshops. So anyway, enough ramble. If you're interested in working with me, you will find all the links in the description below. And now we can get into the topic of today, which is speaking French with confidence. And it has taken me quite some effort to prepare it. I actually have 5 pages of notes. Normally have 1 or 2 pages of notes, but I just had lots and lots of ideas about this topic, about how can you improve your confidence when you are speaking French. And there is this idea floating in the coaching space that every coach's job really is to help you be confident. So every coach for every topic, not just French, is speaking about how you can be more confident. And I found that really interesting, that very often everything they tell you is just point one on this list. And of course, I found another 6 points because it's 7 hacks you've never heard of. I probably could have found more, but I have to, brain myself and like stop somewhere. And yeah, so like I was saying, the you've never heard of might not be new to you if you have been following me for a long time, but if you have never followed me before, you might actually have heard, you might never have heard of it for real. The reason is that nothing is really new. We have 5,000 years of history of language learning, so we know what works. And it would be actually concerning if I was suddenly promoting something completely new, because I mean, I'm the expert in this thing. It's not like something can just fall onto the space and be revolutionary. Like I wish, but after 5,000 years, we actually really know what works. And something that's really interesting is that people have been learning languages from and the word 5,000, I don't just throw it around like that. In 3000 BC, the Sumerians have started learning the Akkadian language. And the reason why they did that was because the Sumerians were tradesmen, they were salesmen, they were really, really good at it. Like they were known to be the first international salesmen in the world. And they figured that if they wanted to sell some of their goods to the Akkadians, they should rather learn to speak the Akkadian language a little bit, like, so that they could communicate and do some commerce trade with them. And that's how language learning started. And that's really something that's super important to remember, is that for most of human history, language learning happened because people had a use case. And then something happened, something fortunate, I would say, but that's changed the face of language learning, is that two things actually happened. One, school became compulsory in most Western countries. That was in the 1870s, around that time. That was the case in France, definitely. And in most of Europe, it happened at the same time. And first, people who went to school were learning Latin, because Latin was the language which was supposed to be noble and more noble than our languages. But one day they figured that there was actually such a thing as, politics happening and international relationships. And sometimes people did actually want to speak each other's language, not just learn dead language for the sake of learning something. And that's when they started to actually try to theorize how to learn a foreign language without being in the country or without being in touch with the natives. And really, to be honest, that's when shit hit the fan, because now we have all sorts of language learning methods which are not actually designed to work with the reality of the environment. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. Like the entire reason why we have this discussion right now about being confident speaking a foreign language is because often most of the learning that you do is done outside of the contact with the people. And what you have a problem with is to make the rubber hit the road, if that makes sense. So yeah, what you were saying, I'm glad to be back. It's good to have you here, yeah. And Linda's saying it's easier to haggle when you speak the same language. Absolutely, that's exactly my point. So now every coach in every area is trying to help people to become confident. And one thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of toxicity in this area. Like I heard from Jeff Walker just this week, last week maybe. He said courage becomes before capability. And you have to move before you're ready, because if you're ready, you spend too much time getting ready. And I was like, that's interesting. It doesn't sound very helpful, but still, it's going to be my first point on this list, is that necessity, right? If you have to do something, you will do it. And that is the very reason why the Sumerians started to learn the Akkadian language, because they had to, like, they wanted to expand and do more trade and farther from their homeland. They had to do it. And so necessity became the reason why they learned. And the group of people who is the most successful at learning languages up to a certain point is migrants. People who immigrate into a country. If they don't speak the language when they show up, which most of the time they don't, they just have to learn it and get on with it because they need it. So it's really the first thing on this list, that when you have to, you will do it. You can watch the video, which is one of the oldest video on this channel. It's called "The One Thing You Need to Learn French Successfully." And if you haven't watched it, I can give you the bottom line right here. Basically, if you have a strong need for it, you will be successful no matter what is the method that you are using. So the need is going to trump the method every time. And I'm not telling you more about that video. You can see it. You can watch it. There's a really cool story about the army method and how some American soldiers learned Japanese during World War II. And they learned it very successfully. And yeah, I'm not telling you more. It's just check out that video. It's called The One Thing You Need to Learn French Successfully. And you will understand what it means to need something versus not to need it. They thought they had the best method. And yeah, just check it out. So the whole idea is that if you have to do it, you will do it. But and a lot of coaching is done with the idea of increasing necessity, like just force yourself to believe that you need it, that it is important. For example, in this book, which has nothing to do with language learning, but the point stands, High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. There are 6 habits of extraordinary people, or I don't know how he puts it. One of the habits actually at the back is necessity, increased necessity. You have to need it. If you don't need it, you won't be successful. I don't like that. The thing is, yeah, I mean, it does work, and it sure worked for 5,000 years. It works, yes. Is it comfortable? No. Like, and is it likely to backfire and make it worse for you? Yeah. Like, to be honest, there are lots of coaches who have a tendency to use a shame tactic. Like, if you can't do it, you're a loser. You know, like back in the days before there were coaches for everything, the only coaches that people knew about were fitness coaches, and they were just mostly paid to yell at people and just not let them give up. It works sometimes. Sometimes it's just wants to make you crawl into a hole and just hide. So yeah, does it work? Yes. Is it still toxic? Yes. And do I, as a holistic, a bit touchy-feely coach, do I think we have better solutions? Yeah, I do. This is why there are 7 hacks on this list, not just 1. So I suggest we go back to the fundamentals, which is the 4 steps of learning French, because it's actually built in those 4 steps. Like, you know, like I said, there's this idea that the goal of the job of every coach is to help you be confident. So of course, becoming confident and being confident is built in the method that I use with the 4 steps. So if you're not familiar with it, the 4 steps are selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. So I suggest we start with the end for once. So the second hack that I have is safe practice. So tell me if you've heard of that before. Have you heard of the 4 steps before? Is it new to you? Because I don't. And also tell me if that makes sense. Like, if by the way, I will have sometime at the end to answer all the questions that you have. But if you have questions about what I'm speaking about right now, you can just ask the questions in the middle. Like, we don't have so many people on this live, so it's fine. You can ask any question not any question, but any question about this topic. You can ask. You can just throw it into the chat. And Linda is saying, like drill sergeants, I don't know how anyone in the army survives them. Yeah, it's to be honest, there's a lot that's probably inherited from the army and just the whole like making people do stuff whether they want it or not. So if you hire a coach, you want it, but it still is the same method as just pushing you and shaming you and forcing you to do stuff. And in my experience, it does work sometimes, but often enough it backfires. So that's why I insist so much on safe practice, and it's so important for me in the way that I coach that it is one of my 4 steps. So, and why is it safe practice? Why not just practice? Because arguably, you know, selection, activation, immersion, and practice, that would work. But why do I say safe practice? The reason is that if you are not confident, if you are not feeling confident right now, it's because at some level you believe that you are unsafe. And that's really, really important to keep in mind. Confidence means that you are feeling safe. If you are not feeling safe, you are not going to be confident. So I hope that makes sense, because that is the core idea. And basically all the rest that we are speaking about today will build upon this idea that if you are safe, you will be confident. But if you are not safe, you will most likely not be confident. You have some people who overcompensate a little bit. So when they are not feeling safe, they become a bit more aggressive and a bit more overconfident. But that also tends to backfire. So it's not the best idea. Omowai was saying it makes sense. You hadn't heard of the steps before. Okay, good. Yeah, I will keep speaking about those steps. They are explained in details in a video that is called How to Learn French for Beginners. It's 7 things because I love the number 7, but the first 4 are, or like I think it's 2, 3, 4, and 5 are those 4 steps. So if you want to hear more, you can watch that video. And yeah, and I also want to insist that if you are feeling unsafe around the foreign language, this is not a sign of weakness. This is actually a sign that you are a human with some natural surviving mechanism or a survival instinct. Because if you would live in prehistorical time, um, you would not actually like you would stick with your group, right? If you would leave your group in the prehistorical time, you would be sure to die, and you would not try to run to another group and try to get them to accept you and to learn their language. And no, like no one would do that, because in the best case scenario they would reject you, and in the worst case scenario they would kill you. So if you are not feeling safe around the foreign language, it is normal. It is a normal human survival mechanism to not feel safe around the foreign language. So that's really important, and that is the reason why I insist so much about practicing in a safe space. And when I do coaching and within the French Fluency Accelerator and within all of my courses, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, I insist heavily on the safe space. I know it turns some people off because they just don't like the idea of safe space for some reason, but if you're going to be here, you're going to have to roll with it because it is important. It is so super important. So even if you're not in the French Accelerator and you're not studying with me, I want you to think of how can you be practicing in a safe space. Maybe there are people around you who speak French which you feel are safe. So for example, they are your friends and they want the best for you and they are willing to help you and just, listen as you struggle through the French sentences, which is a lot of what I do during my one-on-one coaching sessions. And sometimes I get messages from my students. I have one of them sitting in my inbox right now, which I still have to answer, where the student is just like, oh, thank you so much for being so patient with me while I struggle so much. And it's my job. Like, it's literally my job to provide a safe space for you to practice French. And even if you're not working with me one-on-one, I want you to think, how can you practice safely? Who is the person who will help you and genuinely hold the space while you are speaking, or who is a good teacher that will help you? If your teacher is making you feel unsafe, you need to change your teacher. Like, I'm not joking. Of course, sometimes you can't because you're in a school and that's just the teacher that you have. But if you can at all change your learning environment to feel safer, do it, because that's super important. Like, it sounds like I'm saying something obvious, and I think I am, but you have to be safe, feel safe while you practice, and the rest will basically elaborate on that. So it's super important. Nina is saying, I just spoke to an English friend who has a place in Tulle, France. We talked about this very thing. She rarely speaks French there because they pretend not to understand her and make fun of her. Definitely not a safe space to practice. Yeah, so for this friend, for example, she needs to find who is a nice person who will be willing to help. And it's true that sometimes the French can be not nice. That happens, like totally happens. But she can have some friends to practice with, or maybe she can find a teacher online. Like, if your friend needs a coach, it's actually something that I could be doing. And as you know, we have some open spots. So if she would be interested, just tell her or tell him. I actually don't know the gender. Oh, she, right? Tell her. Or she can find a teacher maybe on italki or anywhere, but she needs to find someone that she can practice safely with. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I would definitely recommend you send her this video as well, because all those steps here, or all those hacks can help her as well. So the third thing I have on this list is, ta-da, you wouldn't have expected that, immersion. So the reason why immersion is in this list is because you will build up an intuition for the language. And I was listening to another coach, not related to French. He was a dating coach for men, and he said that his clients are asking him, when does it stop being so complicated? When do I stop thinking about all of this? And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that sounds just like my students. When do they have to stop thinking about conjugation? When do they have to stop thinking about, like, the gender of the words, about like how to put the sentence together and so on? And the answer of this coach is, if your inner game is perfected, then your outer game is just a normal byproduct. So that was about dating for men. So he speaks about game because like the vocabulary that they have. But it is really true that if you are internally aligned, so to speak, or you don't have an internal conflict, then it will be easier to project things outward. But unfortunately, if you are always transiting in your head, if you're always trying to put together the sentence, then internally you're completely out of work, and it is unlikely to work out well when you try to speak outwards. So this is why it's important to build an intuition for the language, and I definitely recommend doing as much immersion as you can. Daily French bath is what we call it on this channel. So you know, you've heard about it. If you have been here before, you have heard about it. If anyone listening to this has not heard about the Daily French bath, I want you to tell me in the chat right now that you have never heard of it, because that would mean that you're new, and then I would welcome you very much. Welcome to the channel. But if you have been here before, you have heard of it 100%. It is super important. If you are not right now listening to some French every day, that is one of the reasons why you are not confident around the French language. And you don't need to understand it. That's the key. Because of course, if you wait until you understand it to listen to some French, then it's a catch-22, because you don't practice it, so you don't understand, so you don't practice, so you don't understand, right? So you don't need to understand. It has to be there. Flora has never heard of it. Well, welcome. I guess you're fairly new here, so this is sweet to have you. Yeah. Start listening to some French every day. Oh, by the way, tell me if you would like me to make videos about where to find French content, because I know that I share a lot on my Telegram channel, although I haven't done it in the last few days because I've been very busy doing lots of things. But on my Telegram channel, if you scroll up, you will see lots of French content that I actually watch for myself, because you don't have to watch anything particularly dumb or made for learners. Actually, you shouldn't watch French that is made for learners. You should watch the actual French, or listen to the actual French that French people also listen to, so you build the same kind of intuition for the language. The only way that you learn a language, and I don't know anyone who has successfully learned the foreign language without doing that, the only way that you learn a language, even and especially your native language, is by being immersed in it. So you need to have some of the practice. The name is Daily French Bath, and you will find more about that, Daily French Bath or Immersion. There was an entire we have made an entire weekly live on Immersion maybe a month ago or so you can watch that one. And you can find also 1 or 2 pre-recorded videos about the Daily French Bath. That's super important. And please let me know if you would like me to make recorded videos about, like, I don't know, 10 YouTube channels to watch in French for beginners, or for, I don't know, DIY or any other topic. I definitely can do that. So if you'd like me to share my picks, I can do that. Just tell me if that's something useful for you. So that was the third one. I don't want to elaborate too much on that because, like I said, we had an entire YouTube lesson about it. And yeah, Omwale was saying it would be nice to know where to get content. Okay, I'll think of preparing that. In the meantime, if you are not on my Telegram channel yet, please join it. There are a lot of links in there, and you can actually, you don't even need to scroll. You can go to, let me see if I can see that. So when you click on my face, you have this screen, and if you scroll down, you will have a links area, and all the links will be here. And that's a lot of that's all the links to these classes, but that's also lots of French content that I have shared. So you can just find that there, and I'll think of making videos for here too. Okay, number 4, and number 4, we're jumping from the last step. Okay, we were selection, activation, immersion, safe practice. So we have spoken about safe practice. We have spoken about immersion. This one we won't speak about today because it does not really directly impact the confidence. It's only a very indirect impact. But this is important. So be selective and beware of clutter. It is super important. So basically, you will always, and this is true as well for your native language, but it is even more important to be aware of that for a foreign language like French. If you will always have more French in your brain than the French that comes out of your mouth. Like, this is a given. You cannot have it any other way. You cannot have more French coming out of your mind than what's in your brain. That makes sense, right? But you also cannot have as much. There will always be more in here than comes out of here. This is normal. It's normal to have more passive vocabulary and passive understanding than active speaking practice or writing practice. But that also means that if you are not confident, or if you are not speaking French right now, the solution is never to learn more. And I want you to remember that, because I have so many students who come to me with the idea that they don't know anything, that they're like, oh, I'm a complete beginner. Yes, I've been studying French for 10 years, but I'm a complete beginner. I don't know anything. No, what's happening is that you have a lot of French in your head that is not coming out of your mouth. So please, basically stop learning. I'm sorry to put it this way, but stop learning new stuff. Like, if you are not right now using the French that you need, it means that you need to first focus on using the French that you already know rather than learning more. Because if you have learned so much French and you're not using it, there's no chance whatsoever that what you learn next will be more useful, unless you have just hired a coach like me and I have identified clearly the possible gaps that you have and I'm teaching you those gaps. That's an expert thing to do, right? So if you are not having someone who's really good at it telling you, okay, you have to learn this word and this word and this word, stop learning new words, because it's very likely that you won't be very selective, and it's also very likely that all the words you need, you already have them. If not, then I would strongly recommend watching the class that I gave last week about vocabulary, because we speak about how to choose what to learn and why it's so critical to choose what you learn. But really here, I want you to remember that you have to be selective. If you are not using the French that you know, you have to first start using what you have before you learn more, because learning more will not make you start using it. Never. Like it's actually going to make it worse, because it's actually going to clutter you and give you more options to choose from. You have to become able to speak first with what you have. This is so important. Like if I could leave you with only one thing today, I think that would be the thing. Speak with what you have and then learn more. Don't learn more hoping that you will speak one day, because it's not going to happen. Okay, so Omwale is saying that makes a whole lot of sense. I always feel like I need to learn more. Yes, I think honestly, I don't want to get into a rant for too long, but I think it's something that the school system does to us. We have this idea that we need to like stuff our brain with all sorts of facts, and then one day we will get like the degree, or we will get the permission to do something. Like it's something that it made sense in a time when there was no easy access to information, because you needed to acquire information and to store it somehow. So back then you had to train your memory a lot. I can understand that. However, we live in the age of information where there is too much information. Like this is a completely different environment. And I know I've started by saying that nothing has changed in the last 5,000 years. It's more nothing has changed in the way that we learn languages, the way that our brain works, our psychology and so on. This has not changed, but our environment has changed considerably. And to some degree, it's for the better, because, for example, you can practice your immersion with all sorts of content that you never had access to before. Like before the internet, there was no chance. And every day there is more content being created in French, and you will always be able to find new French for your daily French gap. And this is amazing. But on the other hand, it also means that you have to completely switch the way that you feel about information, and really the things you learn, the words, the structures, these are information. Now, if you need more words, you'll find them on Google in a second. You don't even need to open a dictionary anymore. And if you need any kind of information, you will find them on Google very fast, like not any kind, but most kinds. And we really need to completely shift how, if we want to start speaking a foreign language, if we want to start speaking French, for example, you have to shift how you feel about learning and the need to learn more, which is, it's just a bad habit. Well, it wasn't a bad habit back then, but now it is a bad habit, because we have access to everything we want online. But back in the days, it made sense to learn when we were small, but not anymore. So stop learning more, start using what you learn. And on this area of being selective, I also wanted to put in another thing, which connects back to the safe practice, right? So you have to be selective about what you learn. You also have to be selective about who you learn with and who you practice with, right? Because of safe practice. Because if those people are not being safe for you, if they are not being mocking you, if they are not being helpful to you, if they don't have your best interest at heart, they can set you back considerably. So be selective with who you speak to. And the last thing that you have to be selective about is what situation you speak French in real life. Okay, I will speak more about this in the last point on this list. In the 7th point, we will speak more about how to select your situations. But remember, you have to be selective with that, because otherwise, there's a solid chance you will set yourself up for failure. So yeah, be selective. I'll speak more about that in the last point. If you are stuck, by the way, I know I said it already, but if you are stuck with that, I definitely recommend doing one-on-one coaching with me, because that's my job, basically, to not only provide a safe space, but also give you the words that you will need in your real life. So like I said, I have 3 spots right now, so you will find the link in the description below if that's something you'd like to do. Otherwise, just beware, be selective, and beware of clutter. And there are several kinds of clutter. There's mental clutter, which definitely the words, French words that you have, which you don't need, that belongs to mental clutter, so you don't want that. There is energetic clutter, which we'll speak about in the second to last point on this list, point 6. And there can be clutter in your to-do list. You might have things on your to-do list that you don't need to do or that you shouldn't be doing. So that's clutter. Social media contains a lot of clutter. You might want to curate your feeds a bit more or maybe spend less time on it. It's just clutter is something that will stop you from upgrading yourself in general. So be selective and just start with what you have right now. Use the French that you know. This is super important. And if you think that you cannot use the French that you know, then that's a limiting belief. And turns out it's by 0.5 on this list. So this is a topic that's a bit not so much controversial, but when I make a video specifically about limiting beliefs, the video does very poorly. There is already a video on this channel. I think it has 200 views. It's pitiful. I think students of French do not realize, or people in general do not realize or do not connect the dots between your limiting belief and the lack of confidence. But that is a very, very close connection. So I'm putting it here because I want to sneak this, like the parents would sneak vegetables under the cheese instead of making you eat the vegetables, right? I'm hoping it will land better this way. But yeah, like you will never operate in a way that's contrary to your belief. This is an impossibility in the human mind. You always operate according to what you think is possible. So if you think you can't learn French, guess what? You're not going to speak French. It doesn't matter how much French you actually know. As long as you think you can't, you're not going to be able to, even if nothing is actually stopping you. So that is something you want to look at. And I have 4 or 5, depending on how you look at it, steps that you can use to release a limiting belief. So I would like you to play along with me, and we can run those steps. So please start with identifying a limiting belief. It's step 1. So what are the kind of thoughts that you have? If you're here watching a video about becoming confident or having more confidence when you speak French, that probably means that you have an idea that you are not confident, or an idea or a belief that you can't speak French, or that you'll never be fluent. This is something I hear very often. So please use the chat right now to write down the kind of thoughts that you have about this topic, and then we will run those thoughts through the other steps. So I would like to play it along with you, because it's just easier to take the beliefs that you actually have and run the steps rather than me just making it up, even though I know they're always kind of the same. So please just give me one belief that you have. Just waiting a bit. And while after you have identified your belief, the second step on this list is to be open to the idea that that belief may not be true, or it may not be relevant, or it may be true but not always. So for example, you can believe that you can't speak because right now you're trying to and you can't, but it may not be true tomorrow, right? And just be open to the idea that it's not permanent, or it's not relevant perhaps. Like there is an idea, for example, floating around that it is easier for children than for adults to learn a foreign language. And I could make the case that it's easier for children. I could also make the case that it's easier for adults. It depends, right? It's not always true, and it certainly isn't relevant, because as an adult, you can learn a foreign language, and that is an important belief to have. Okay, so Flora is saying she has a limiting belief that she is naturally shy. Maybe it is true that you are naturally shy, but maybe it's not relevant. Maybe you can be shy and be a French speaker. Like, why not, right? Omowalio has, I'll never be able to speak French fluently. Okay, so just be open to the possibility that it may not be true, because of course, if you believe that, you will act in accordance to it. Like you will see it actualized in real life. And a belief that includes the word never, it's very limiting, because until you kick it out, you are not going to be able to make progress, or at least not make enough progress that you will consider yourself fluent. I do know some people who speak fluently who do believe that they cannot speak fluently. They just ascribe a different definition to fluently, and like, oh, they speak with ease, but they make mistakes. And they think that fluently means that you don't make any mistakes. By this metric, most natives are not fluent. I mean, I even make mistakes in French sometimes. Like, I don't think that I speak perfect French, especially when I'm writing. Sometimes I write something wrong. I have to proofread to just check. And also, it's the case in your native language, right? So yeah, that's so bad that sometimes you could even be able to speak French fluently, but believe that you are not speaking fluently just because you have the belief. And I've seen that happen more than once. And it's the same for Linda with the ever in it. My biggest limiting belief is that I won't ever think in French. It might not be true. Like, I see no reason whatsoever why you wouldn't be able to think in French eventually. But of course, if you hold the belief that you won't ever think in French, then there's nothing you can do about it. So step 2, be open to the idea that it may not be true. You just please type in the chat, okay, I'm open to the possibility that it might not be true for Omowaleyo and Linda, and for Flora, either that it might not be true or that it might not be relevant. Because, you know, plenty of French speakers are shy, and you can be shy. Shai Shavi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hello, it's according to me, I tend to forget words or maybe their pronunciation even if I know them. That could be true. That could also be some sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you keep believing that you will always forget it or always forget the pronunciation, it's likely to self-actualize, but it also might just be that you need a better system to learn the words and their pronunciation. I mean, watch the video that we made last week about learning vocabulary, because there I share how you can learn vocabulary words in a successful manner. And there is also a video about pronunciation where I explain a bit more. I could be able to make an entire class about the connection between the writing and the spelling and the pronunciation of the words. Please tell me if it's something you'd like to have as one of those classes. I've never thought of it, but it could be interesting. I wanted to make a workshop for the accelerator for that, but the students never actually voted for this topic. They always voted for other topics which were more pressing. So if you'd like, I can totally do it here. All right, Mwaleyu is open to the idea that their belief is not true. So this is super important. You are open to the idea that the belief is not true. That's step 2. Step 3, decide what you want to believe instead. So I cannot decide that for you, but I can give you hints. Please type in the comment your new belief that you want to have instead. So for Flora, it could be, I am shy and a French speaker. I am a shy French speaker. Or I am not actually shy when I speak French. I can speak French without being shy. For Linda, it could be, I am learning to think in French right now, or I am starting to think in French right now. For Omowaleyo, it can be, I am becoming a fluent French speaker. Now, what's important is that this new belief, it has to be believable. If it's completely out of whack with what you would possibly believe, that won't work. You have to have something that you can actually believe. So not something like, I am right now speaking French perfectly. No, you're not. Like, if it's not true, it's not going to help. It has to be something that you can believe. Okay, so just type in whatever that would be for you. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer that. Yeah, Linda is, I am starting to think in French. If you can believe it, that's awesome. Flora is, I am a confident French speaker. Yeah, so if you actually know a lot of French already, you can believe that you are a confident French speaker. You could also use that as an affirmation. Affirmations are really helpful. We can use that as in a future step. I do have affirmations on this channel as well, if you want to find some. That could be an affirmation. I am a confident French speaker. Yeah, so now you have your third step completed. Decide what you want to believe instead. 4, that is the reason why you need it to be absolutely believable, is that you need to gather some evidence that your new belief is actually true. Okay, that's a step that you can use 4 or 5, or you can use both. But we're gonna try both right now, so you see how it works. So Flora has, I am on my way to becoming a confident French speaker. Yeah, that might be easier to believe than I am a confident French speaker. I am a confident French speaker can be an affirmation that you use in the last step of this process, in step 5. Omowaleyo, I am learning to become fluent in speaking French. Great, this is amazing. So now you are gathering evidence that this new belief is indeed true. One piece of evidence is that you are watching this video or live video with me, and I am helping you become a confident French speaker. So I am helping you become a confident French speaker. It means you are actually becoming a confident French speaker, right? So this is one piece of evidence. You might have evidence in your life. Perhaps you can do something right now that you could not do before, and that is a sign that you are becoming a confident French speaker, or that you are becoming fluent, or you are starting to think in French. If you are starting to think small amounts of French, for example, 2 words or 3 words at a time, that is also an evidence that you are starting to think in French, right? In the last point of this live class, which is the 7th point, I will offer you a way that you can easily collect some evidence in your actual life. So please stick around for that. But for right now, collect the evidence that you already have. So if this rings a bell, if this makes sense to you, please type in the chat the kind of evidence that you have. Maybe you have learned new words recently and you could use them. That is a piece of evidence. Yeah, just tell me, like, for example, Linda, I know you had a session last Sunday and you were definitely speaking French more efficiently than before. So that is a sign that you are making progress in French. So yeah, just type in your own little evidence while I'm having a drink. And in step 5, so in the video about limiting beliefs on this channel, I only have those 4 steps. I've added the 5th step. I think actually, I'm not actually sure that the 5th step is not in there. Maybe it is. But I've added the 5th step because I have actually some bad news. Your limiting belief that you had at the beginning, it will creep back in. Like, I would be very surprised if after you've gone through this process once, the belief was gone forever. This rarely happens. I'm not saying it's not possible. I think it is technically possible. But in most cases, your belief is going to come back. It's going to creep back in. So whenever it comes back, for I think I was divinely led to this video, that's a sign. Absolutely. Like, if you have stuff popping on your feed and it's helping you in some way, and you are divinely guided or divinely led by it, that is a sign that you are making progress, 100%. And while you were saying they can introduce themselves in French, I assume you couldn't do that before, so that is progress. Congratulations, this is amazing. And so the last step, whenever your belief creeps back in, whenever it's like, oh, you're shy, oh, you'll never think in French, or you'll never be fluent, you can use what we call a pattern interrupt to stop that belief. So because the whole goal is, it's okay to have the thought coming up. What you don't want is to have the thought on repeat and have it dominate your life. So you can use a pattern interrupter for that, and that could be an affirmation. So like I said, for example, Flora, you can use, I am a confident French speaker. You know, your brain, your mind goes like, oh, you're shy. Like, no, I am a confident French speaker. And that should startle your mind enough that it would stop running this process. So that is a good thing that you can do. I am learning to think in French. You know, Linda, it's like, oh, you'll never think in French. No, I am learning to think in French. That can be used as an affirmation. You can use your new belief, which you have from step 3 as an affirmation. That works. Or one that I like that works for everything is thank you for sharing. In this particular instance, you can imagine that your mind, which is giving you like the bad belief, is like your mother-in-law. I don't know if you have a mother-in-law, and if you have one, maybe you have a great relationship with her. But most people don't really like the fact that their mother-in-law is just telling them how to live their life. And just imagine, you know, if you want to get rid of her, you can go like, oh, yeah, thank you, you're very helpful, thank you for sharing. And then, you know, you go and do your own thing. You can do that with your mind. You'll never be confident. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Oh, okay. And then you can go away. So it's really a good idea to use a pattern interrupter. You can use an affirmation. And for things that are very emotional, like if you're feeling very stuck emotionally, if you're feeling that your energy is very contracted around a belief, one pattern interrupt technique that I like is called EFT. That stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And some people call it tapping. So on YouTube, you can find it under EFT tapping. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So if tell me if you have ever heard of EFT, and if you haven't, I could actually make videos for EFT for speaking French. I have never actually done that. I have done some in the French Fluency Accelerator, but not on this YouTube channel. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know, and I would make videos to help you with that. But I definitely recommend looking up EFT tapping in general. You can find EFT tapping for confidence. It won't be confidence about speaking French, but it would be confidence in general. You have EFT videos for every emotion that exists. And if you're really stuck, you're feeling like, and maybe you don't actually have time to, sometimes you just, you know, you have an exam tomorrow, you need to like feel better. EFT is a great way to make progress rapidly with your emotions. So tell me if that's something you're interested in hearing more, and I can share more about that. All right, so Shai Shavi is saying, I recently started listening to podcasts and French song, and surprisingly, I can understand it, but not everything. Yes, that is exactly the reason why I recommend the daily French bath or immersion every single time I come live, not just here, but also in the French Accelerator and wherever. I always mention the daily French bath. It's super important. The reason is because you don't need to understand anything, but you actually will. And the more you do it, the more you will understand. It's like magic. I cannot really explain it to you. I mean, of course, it is explainable by the fact that it's how the brain works. If the brain accepts that the language is around you and that French is part of your life right now, you will actually be able to start understanding French. It's going to happen. Now, I don't want you to be like, oh my God, it's not happening yet, because that would be a limiting belief, which you can run those 4 steps. Remember, right? Identify the belief, be open to the idea that it may not be true, may not be relevant, or may not be true always. Decide what you want to believe in instead. A good one would be, A, I believe most of what I hear in my daily French draft. That would be a great belief to have. And then you gather evidence that this is true. For example, for you, Shai Shavi, you started understanding some of the songs. That is a proof that it is true. And if it comes back, use a pattern interrupt, use EFT, or use an affirmation. So Flora saying, that's great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing. It's one of my favorite things. I stole it from T. Art Ecker. I think it's originally in this book, Secret of the Millionaire Mind. I think that's where I have it from at first. Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot. So go ahead and start using it if you haven't yet. People use EFT for anxious dogs. I didn't know that. Do you tap on the dog? Like, how does that work? Flora saying she has done EFT a few times. A video script on EFT for mastering French. Okay, that's a great one. I will write that down afterwards. Actually, no, I will write it down right now because otherwise I might forget. Just let's see. EFT for mastering French. And yeah, I'll make a video and then I'll share the script on Telegram so you can have it in writing. All right, that's great. Shai Shavi music can really help you learn. Yep. Oh, you tap on the dog. Wow, I didn't know that was possible. I'm gonna have to like Google that and see if there are videos of people tapping on the dog, and so I guess it helps the dog be less emotional. That sounds cool. So yeah, this is how you release limiting beliefs. But I have some more bad news for you. Not only they creep back in, but the thing is, it frequently doesn't work, or rather it only takes you so far. Like, it does work, but it only takes you so far often. Like, most people find that yes, it works, it helps to some level, but then you get stuck again. So you can use EFT if a situation is very charged emotionally, that helps. But there is something else that I want to show you. And this is a picture that is from this book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. And it's on page 67. And the reason why the releasing the limiting beliefs works only to some extent is because of this. This is what you know you believe. And obviously, we've spoken about your belief right now. These are the beliefs that you know you believe. If you don't know that you believe them, then you cannot mention them in the chat to me right now. Okay, that makes sense, right? So, but this is what you don't know you believe. So you have lots of beliefs that are actually subconscious, which you do not easily have access to. And it's really interesting when you start releasing your negative or limiting beliefs, you will find new ones that you didn't know you had. It's a fascinating journey. I've been on this personal development or personal growth journey for a good 5 years now. And I just keep finding new limiting beliefs that I had. I found one this morning. Like, I'm not kidding. I just literally found a new one. It was really weird. Maybe I can tell you about it. I don't know if you want to hear about it. But basically, I've realized that when I say I don't care, sometimes I believe that I don't care about things, but I actually do care. And worse than that, it's actually good that I care, but the fact that I believe that I don't care about stuff stops me, and it's a limiting belief. And I was like, whoa, really? Like, and it's so fascinating because in the law of attraction and all these kind of, manifesting techniques, one of the key elements is that you have to be detached. You have to be okay with any outcome. You don't have to not be attached to the outcome. So for years, literally, I have been believing that when I say I don't care, it meant that I was actually detached. Well, I was not. I was just believing that I didn't care, but I did care. I was really attached. And I was like, whoa, this is huge. It will probably change a lot of how I do things in my life just because I have found this belief now. So you will find more and more. And the reason why you find new ones is because you have a whole stock of beliefs that you don't know you have. So that's annoying. But there's a way that you can access them, and it will take a long time. It's little by little. It's a commitment for life, to be honest. If you're not willing to be on that journey for a long time, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the whole point is that your life gets better and better as you do it. And so I called it energy clearing. It's point 6 on this list. We already actually have a video where I spoke about unlocking your French power. I think it was 3 keys, and one of them was energy clearing. So I've already spoken about that. There is also a full energy clearing workshop in the French Accelerator. It's not the one about manifesting, that's another one. So we have 2. We have one about manifesting techniques for learning French and one about energy clearing for learning French. And the whole point is to start unlocking those beliefs that you don't know you have, and finding them, releasing them, and so on. So there are a whole lot of ways that you can do that, and I like to give actionable steps, although, I mean, this is not a live class entirely about energy clearing. I already made some, but here are some things that you can do. So meditation in general is very helpful. Sometimes just quieting your mind and calming your nervous system with EFT will help you find new beliefs. This is literally how I found the new one that I found this morning. I was like just being quiet and sitting with my hand coloring and just coloring something, and just I was listening to a spiritual course, and it just dawned on me like, whoa, I have this belief. So that can help. And of course, once you know you have it, you can run it through the 4 steps that we had in the previous one. So it's really useful to actually find it. So meditation really helps, just quieting your mind. EFT really helps because that will help you. Sometimes when you tap, if you make the script yourself, you will start saying things that you didn't know you believed. And I was like, when that happens to me, I'm like, whoa, where does that come from? It comes from here, okay? That's where it comes from. So I like chakra clearing, very helpful. Either you can use a meditation technique to clear your chakras, or you can use chakra clearing tracks on YouTube. That's where I find mine. They are very helpful. They work. You can do active energy clearing with a particular intent. So like I said, I already spoke about that in the Are You Sabotaging Your French Study? 3 Ways to Unlock Your Learning Power. There is even an energy clearing meditation at the end of that live class, which we did live, and the students felt that it was very helpful. So if you would like to do that, please find this one. I can't believe it's already 52 minutes. I'm so sorry. I knew this was getting a really long, so I'm not going to do some energy clearing right now, but you can find that in the other one. And yeah, by the way, would you like me to make a full video or a full YouTube live about the different ways that you can use meditation to learn French? So specifically about meditation, I have one already, which is about, what is it called? Altered states of consciousness. That's the topic of it. But I could make one specifically about meditation, how you can use it, how it helps, and how to get started, maybe if it's difficult for you. So please tell me if that's something you'd like to have. And finally, I have to move on to the last step if I want to have a bit of time for questions. Start small. And this is perhaps the most important element. I know I've said most important a lot. Everything is important, to be honest. This is why we have the cheat sheet that is meant to, the worksheet that is meant to be used as a cheat sheet eventually. When you feel not confident, you can look through this, and suddenly you're stuck somewhere. Somewhere in there is where it's going wrong. So that would be just all the things that you can check for when you're not feeling confident. But starting small means that you have to start with whatever is easy for you. So it might look different for different people. So for example, Omo, you said, I think you said that you learned to introduce yourself in French and you can now do it. You can go online onto a French forum and introduce yourself to people and start interacting with people. That might be your small starting point. You could find a French group of something somewhere online and introduce yourself to them. That would be a starting point. A thing that I've noticed among my one-on-one coaching clients is that often it is easier for them to write than to speak. Guess what? Nowadays, a lot of communication happens through email and through text messages. I cannot tell you how many of my students have felt that they were making a lot of progress in their French journey just because they started texting their friends in French instead of texting them in English. Because it might be where you can start. When you think about it, it makes sense because writing leaves you some time to think when you are about to speak. Like, for example, if you're in a one-on-one coaching session, even if it's with me, even if it's the safest space that exists, you still have a feeling of some sort of urgency, and you will feel like, oh my god, like I have to speak now. It's not like I can wait 10 minutes until I find the word. And to me as a coach, I don't mind waiting 10 minutes for you to find the word if that's what it takes. But most of the time when you're trying to speak, you don't have 10 minutes. You have to speak now. But if you're texting, if you're answering a text, you have 10 minutes. So it's fine. It's more relaxed. So if for you starting small means starting with text messages instead of speaking, go for it. It counts 100%. If it's going to a cafe, like if you live in France, for example, and the only thing that you can think of doing is going to a cafe and ordering a coffee in French, do that. I was on a call recently with a student that he was telling me that he couldn't even go to a bakery to order a pastry, and I was like, I'm sure you can. Like just go to a bakery, order your pastry. Like that could be your challenge. I like to give little challenges to students, especially if you're living in France. Like if you're not living in France, it's a bit harder, but you can do it online 100%. Well, it could be just going to a bakery and buying your bread in French. That would be your challenges for that day. And then you count it as a success, and you count it as a proof that you can actually learn French and speak French. All you have to do really is find ways that you will actually use French in real life, because the reason why you're stuck often, I mean, I'm not saying it's always the case, but very often people are stuck because they are not actually using the language and they are not having real life situations where they use it. There is a testimonial somewhere on this channel. Like if you go to the playlist tab, you have a playlist with testimonials, and there's a student of mine called Chase, which I worked with several years ago. And he is an theater student who lived in Paris at the time. And one of the things he says in that testimonial is that he found himself having a full conversation with one of his teachers, and he only realized at the end that he had been speaking French the whole time. And he was like, oh, wow, I guess I can speak French actually. Like, yeah, this is how you realize that you can speak French, is when you have spoken French and you're like, oh God, I did it. This is true. I did it. And so you have a proof, like, actual physical real life proof that you can do it because you did. So start small. It's super important. So it's also one of the cornerstones of my coaching practice. I always make people start with what's easiest and what will have the most impact. And often those two are really the same, because if something is hard and you can't learn it, then it won't have any impact because you're not learning it. So easiest and most impact is often the same thing. But there's a trap, and that's a limiting belief. So we're circling back to point 4 or 5 to point 5 on this list. This is a belief that can keep you stuck big time. I hope you don't have it, but many, many people have it. Lots of people believe that if it's easy, it doesn't count. And I'm thinking in particular of a student with whom I had this conversation more than once. And if he's listening to this, he's not live right now, but if he listens to this in the future, he will know it's him. Yes, I'm talking to you. And if you have this idea as well, that counts as well. So if you believe that if it's easy, it doesn't count, this will keep you trapped and stuck forever, as long as you don't kick the belief. Because yeah, like one, you will resist because you were like, oh, that's too easy, I'm not gonna do it. No, if it's easy, do it. Like you have no reason not to do it if it's easy, right? And two, it could be that it's easy and you're doing it, but you don't believe that it counts. And oh my God, like I have this student who says, yeah, I can speak French at work, but that doesn't count because it's easy for me. I'm like, you're speaking French in your professional life? Like this is huge. You are actually a French speaker. You're speaking, you're doing it, but somehow you believe that it doesn't count. And I mean, this is one of the main reasons why you have to address your limiting beliefs, because you could actually be speaking French in your actual life, like for real, and still not believe that you're fluent because for whatever reason, it's too easy, it doesn't count, or I can't do it in this particular situation, so it doesn't count. Like, don't let the belief that if something is easy, it doesn't count, don't let that fool you. Like, here is evidence that this belief is not true. People don't care if it was easy for you, and in fact, people actually prefer it. Like natives will, a native speaker does not have a hard time speaking the language, or a fluent speaker does not have a hard time. Like it's not hard when you're fluent to speak a language. I have been speaking English right now for 1 hour on end. It's not my native language, it's a language that I have learned, but it is easy for me to speak it. So, and yes, it counts. Like I do not believe that I'm not fluent in English just because it is easy. I am completely fluent. You can hear that, right? So, and most of the time in a conversation, when it feels easy to you and to the other person, that is the best situation you can have. So please start believing that if it is easy, it counts. And really becoming fluent is doing something easy after something easy, after something easy, after something easy. If it's very difficult, that's when you will have a lot of resistance and that will hold you back. So I hope this made sense. All of these things are working together. So if any of those isn't working, it's probably because, sorry, if it is not working, like if you're not speaking French, it's because you're stuck in one of those 7 areas, right? So you can use the worksheet as a cheat sheet now that you have it. And whenever you're not feeling confident, then you will always have at least one of those hacks that will work. So either it's a limiting belief. If you can't find the belief, then it's probably something to do energy clearing on. And if you don't really know where to start small, right? So I hope that makes sense. I know I've spoken a lot. It's been an hour, but I'm happy to answer a couple of questions if you do have some. So please type them now, and I'll definitely answer your questions. I'll just read the comments that came in. So you tap on the dog, you do strokes on the ears of the dog. I think that would be, yeah, Linda, you say you think that would be a great class, but I forgot completely what that was about. So can you tell me which one you were meaning? Lol, me, I write far better than I do. It's not just you. It's at least 50% of students. It's very rare to find someone who speaks better than they write. It is the case for immigrants, definitely, because they need to speak, so they learn to speak, but they might not need to write, so they might not learn to write. Like, it comes back to, what do you need? Like, what is the thing that's most readily available to you? So for you, it was easier to learn to write, but it's not a bad thing. It's just what you learn first. So Omwali was saying they also write better in French, so there you go. I feel like it's a different part of my brain or a different brain process. Yes, you could be correct about that. I don't actually have, it's something I have studied, but it was like 20 years ago. No, not 20 years, who am I kidding? I'm not that old. 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, so would need to find that more. But yeah, definitely writing is using different brain circuitry than speaking. And also, as long as you're not fluent and you're not thinking in French, it is using a different brain circuitry than your English speaking. So that's one thing. That's one of the reasons why thinking in French is so challenging, is because you have to switch to using the same circuitry that you use for English, which you're not used to, and your brain does not like doing things that it's not used to. So yeah. Can I list the books I shared on the chat? I can. So the first one was High Performance Habit by Brandon Bouchard. I think I briefly showed Secret of the Millionaire Mind. Those two are very, actually all of them, I think you can find book summaries on YouTube. I don't love book summaries, but it's a great way to find if, like, don't take book summaries as a replacement for the books. They never really work, but it's a great way to find out what's in the book and decide whether or not you want to read it or perhaps listen to it on audiobook. The last one is The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and the author is Vishen Lakhiani. By the way, bragging moment, I'm very proud that I actually have been able to study in person with Vishen Lakhiani, and I have a signed copy of the book as a result. So, yep, really proud of that. That was my bragging moment. All right, so Leo is leaving. Yep, bye, see you next week. Thank you for dropping by. It was really cool having you. Oh, Linda, you already wrote all the titles. Well, thank you. I wish I had read through that all. Can you recommend any French books to read or practice? I can, and it would be helpful to know your level, because depending on the level that you are at, I would recommend different books. So if you are at a level which is A2, B1, or B2, what you could do is you could type in Amazon easy, what is it called? Livre en français facile. So type Livre en français facile and your level, so either A2, B1, or B2. There might be some for A1, I'm not sure, maybe. Try it. And then those books are, typically they're classics, but they are adjusted for the level of the student. If you are not a beginner or you are not a lower intermediate student, you are actually advanced, here are some books that I love to recommend. So I love this author, Eric Emmanuel Schmidt. Linda, can you write it down since you're writing in the chat? That's really helpful. I love this author in particular. I have Monsieur Ibrahim et les fleurs du Coran here, but he has so many books, and they're really tiny, and they're not very long. it would work for you starting B2 level. Like if you're lower than B2, I wouldn't particularly recommend any books that are actually written for adult French speakers. But he has a book. He always writes, not always, but many of his books are written with a young boy who is discovering a religion different than his own. So this one, as you can guess, is Les Fleurs du Coran, right? So it is about Islam, right? So it's about a young Jewish boy who is becoming friends with the Muslim, what do you call that? The person who sells groceries, and he is discovering the Muslim religion thanks to this guy. And there are, among all the books that Enrique Emmanuel Schmidt has written, there are every major religion has one. Like he's written one about Zen. There's one about Judaism. There is one about, I don't know if there's one about Christianity, but there probably is. And it's really a great way to discover other religions through the eyes of a young boy. It's always a 12 or 13-year-old boy. One that you probably heard of, Le Petit Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. That is meant to be a children book, ish. It's a book that, as an adult, I love. So it's not really just for children. It speaks about lots of very important topics, but it is written in a way that you can actually read it to a child and they understand. So the vocabulary is simple, so I definitely would recommend this. But yeah, if you're level A2, the best thing you can do is, yeah, exactly. So Linda is saying that she has a couple of novels, for example, The Man in the Iron Mask, so L'Homme au Masque de Fer in French. And it's not that it was originally written at A1, A2 level, it was rewritten. And it's published by Clé, yeah, Clé or Clé International, and you can find them on Amazon. So if you type Livre en français facile and A1 or A2, you'll find them. And that's really the best way to start learning. All right, thank you so much. That's very, very helpful. Welcome. I'm happy to help. So I'm already over time. If there are any questions, quickly. I was completely expecting that. I mean, 5 pages of notes, that's too much. Shouldn't really do that next time. It's a really, really broad topic. And I think the reason why I had never actually made a video on this topic is because it's so broad. But I'll definitely make more videos because it seems to be something that people are looking up a lot on YouTube. So I'll make more, 100%. All right, so if you don't have any more questions, we're already over time. So I'm going to leave. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I will be back next week with another topic. I'm not sure exactly which one yet, but you know the drill. Be on the Telegram channel, and I will send you all the information and the worksheet over there. So thank you so much for being here with me. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.